The Sonoran Desert at dawn. Silence, except for the faint hiss of cooling sand. The horizon is broken not by trees, but by giants, saguaro cacti, standing motionless, 30 feet tall, arms raised like sentinels. They do not sway. They do not rustle. They simply exist, monolithic and ancient, in a place where nothing should survive at all. Around them, ocotillos stretch upward in thin, whip-like spires. Boojum trees twist skyward like botanical question marks, defying every rule of proportion and logic. These are not the low, hugging shrubs you might expect in a land of scorching heat and vanishing water. These are towers, monuments, architecture built by evolution in a place that punishes mistakes with death. Why, in the harshest, most water-starved landscapes on Earth, do plants grow tall? Why reach for the sky when logic suggests staying low, staying hidden, conserving every drop? Today we're diving into one of the desert's most counterintuitive mysteries. The strange, towering growth of plants, where height should be a death sentence. What we find is not defiance of the environment, but an intimate, ancient conversation with it. A dialogue written in thorn and root, in shadow and sunlight, in the brutal economics of survival. The desert is not one thing. It is a spectrum of violence. In the Atacama, some weather stations have never recorded rain. In the Mojave, summer ground temperatures exceed 170 degrees Fahrenheit. In the Namib, coastal fog is the only moisture for months. Yet across these wastelands, certain plants do not crouch. They rise. The Saguaro cactus, Cantagia gigantei, can reach 50 feet and live for 2 centuries. The baobab in African deserts swells to 30 feet in diameter and looms over the savanna like a swollen fist. The dragon's blood tree of Socotra Island spreads its crown like an umbrella over the barren rock. These are not anomalies. They are strategies. To understand why, you must first understand what the desert is. It is not simply hot. It is inconsistent. Rain may fall once a year or once a decade. When it does, it arrives in violent bursts, flooding arroyos and vanishing into the sand within hours. The desert does not offer steady resources. It offers lottery tickets. And tall plants are playing a long game. They are not built for the average day. They are built for the exceptional one. The saguaro, for instance, has a root system that spreads wide and shallow, sometimes covering an area the size of a basketball court. When rain finally comes, these roots drink fast, absorbing hundreds of gallons in a single day. The cactus swells. Its pleated skin expands like an accordion. It becomes a water tower, and that height, 30, 40, 50 feet, is not waste. It is storage made vertical. The taller the cactus, the greater its capacity to hold water through the months of drought. Height is a reservoir, but storage is only part of the answer. The desert is also a furnace. At ground level, the air shimmers with heat. Soil temperatures can cook flesh. Small plants, low shrubs, succulents clinging to the earth, they bake. They endure the full, unrelenting thermal load of the ground. But tall plants escape. The saguaro's height lifts its living tissue into cooler air. Even a difference of 10 feet can mean a temperature drop of several degrees. In a landscape where every degree matters, where enzymes denature and cells collapse under heat stress. That vertical distance is survival. The ocotillo, Focieria splendens, grows tall and thin, its spindly branches reaching 15 feet or more. It sacrifices width for height, minimizing its exposure to ground heat while maximizing its access to cooler, moving air. The boojum tree, native to Baja California, stretches upward in a surreal, tapering column, sometimes branching, sometimes not, as if testing the limits of how far a plant can rise before physics intervenes. These plants are not reaching for the sun, they are fleeing the ground. Then there is the matter of light, and competition, and evolutionary memory. Deserts were not always deserts. Millions of years ago, many of these regions were wetter, greener, populated by forests and grasslands. As climates shifted, as rain patterns changed and aridity crept in, plants faced a choice: adapt or vanish. Some shrank, some went dormant, but others kept their height. The reason is rooted in competition. Even in a place where competitors seem sparse. In the Sonoran Desert, a young saguaro does not grow alone. It germinates in the shade of a nurse plant, a palo verde, a mesquite, an ironwood tree. These nurses provide shelter from the sun, protection from frost, and a microclimate where moisture lingers just a little longer. But as the saguaro grows, it must eventually surpass its protector. If it stays low, it remains shaded, starved of the light it needs to photosynthesize efficiently. So it grows tall. It pushes upward, breaking free of the canopy, claiming its own space in the sun. Height is not a luxury, it is escape from dependence. In Madagascar's spiny forest, the same logic plays out in a landscape so alien it seems drawn from science fiction. Here, members of the Pachypodium genus, succulents that look like miniature baobabs, grow tall and thick-trunked, their crowns bristling with thin leaves. They compete not with trees, but with each other, and with the creeping thorned vines that strangle anything within reach. To survive, they must rise above the tangle. Height is distance. Distance is safety. The Namib Desert's Welwitschia mirabilis, though not tall in the traditional sense, spreads its two eternal leaves across the ground in a low, sprawling form. But its reproductive cones rise on stalks, lifting seeds into the wind, ensuring dispersal beyond the parent plant's shadow. Even here, in one of the slowest growing plants on Earth, verticality serves a purpose. And then there are the carrion flowers, Stapelia species, and their relatives, which grow low but send up tall, fleshy blooms that reek of rotting meat. These flowers attract pollinators from a distance: flies, beetles, carrion feeders. The height of the bloom ensures it is visible and olfactorily detectable across the sparse, empty terrain. In a desert where pollinators are rare and unpredictable, height is a broadcast. It is a signal flare. It says, "I am here. I am ready. Come now, before I wither." But there is something deeper, something embedded in the physics and geometry of survival. Tall plants in deserts do not simply grow, they engineer. The saguaro's skin is ribbed, not smooth. These ribs allow expansion when water is absorbed, but they also create self-shading. The ridges cast shadows on the valleys between them, reducing the surface area exposed to direct sunlight. The entire cactus becomes a living radiator, managing heat through shape. The boojum tree's strange, tapering form minimizes wind resistance. In the open desert, wind is a thief. It strips moisture from leaves, dries out tissue, topples the unstable. By growing tall and narrow, the boojum reduces drag, standing firm while offering little surface for the wind to grab. The ocotillo takes this further. For most of the year, it stands leafless, just a cluster of thorny sticks. But within days of rain, it explodes into green, covering itself in small, photosynthetically efficient leaves. It uses its height to maximize light capture during these brief, precious windows. Then, as drought returns, it sheds the leaves entirely, retreating into dormancy. The height remains, the structure remains. The plant does not shrink, it waits. This is not growth for growth's sake. This is infrastructure. The tall stems are permanent investments, built slowly, maintained cheaply, ready to be activated the moment conditions allow. In the Atacama, the candelabra cactus, Browningia candelaris, grows in a form that seems almost architectural, straight vertical columns branching into symmetrical arms. It can reach 20 feet. It lives in one of the driest places on Earth, where rainfall is measured in millimeters per decade. And yet it grows tall. Why? Because height in such an extreme environment is a gamble that pays off in rare, explosive events. When the El Niño rains come, once every 5 or 10 years, the desert blooms. Seeds germinate, insects swarm, pollinators arrive, and the tall cacti, already established, already towering, are the first to be seen, the first to be visited, the first to reproduce. Their height is an evolutionary bet on the improbable. But in the desert, the improbable is the only game in town. And then there is the question of time. Deserts do not reward speed, they reward patience. The saguaro grows perhaps an inch a year for its first decade. It may not flower until it is 35 years old. A boojum tree might take a century to reach its full height. These are not plants in a hurry. They are monuments to endurance. Their height is not achieved quickly, it is accumulated, slowly, painfully, across decades and centuries. Every inch of growth represents a year survived, a drought endured, a rare rain captured. The tallest desert plants are also the oldest. They are archives, living records of climate, of water, of survival. In the Kalahari, shepherd's trees Boschia albitrunca grow alone, scattered across the red sand. They are not cacti, not succulents, but true trees. They grow tall, sometimes 30 feet or more, their roots plunging down as far as 200 feet to reach ancient ground. Their height is not about escaping heat or storing water, it is about access. They tap into reservoirs buried deep beneath the surface, relics of wetter times, and they lift that water into the air, into their crowns, where leaves transpire and shade forms. Beneath these trees, grasses grow, animals rest. The shepherd's tree is a keystone, an oasis maker, and its height is the engine of that ecosystem. Without it, the Kalahari would be even more barren. What we begin to see is that height in the desert is not one thing. It is many. It is storage. It is escape. It is competition. It is engineering. It is investment. It is signal. It is patience. The desert selects for plants that can do more than survive. They must outwait, outreach, and out-engineer the chaos, and the strange, surreal forms they take. These towers and spires and twisted columns are the visible evidence of that invisible pressure. Every angle, every thorn, every rib and branch is a solution to a problem we can barely imagine. The desert is a laboratory, and the plants are the experiments that worked. We still do not fully understand all of it. We know the mechanics: water storage, heat avoidance, light competition, beauty. But we do not always know the evolutionary history. We do not know why some lineages went tall and others stayed low. We do not know how much of this is adaptation and how much is accident, frozen in place by genetic inertia. We do not know what these plants will do as deserts expand, as temperatures rise, as rain patterns shift again. Will the Saguaro move north? Will the boojum adapt or disappear? The desert keeps its secrets close, but standing beneath a 50-foot cactus in the middle of nowhere, under a sky so vast it bends at the edges, you feel something. Not just awe, but recognition. These plants are not alien. They are us, in a way, solving problems, taking risks, building for a future they will never see. They are tall not because they can afford to be, but because they cannot afford not to be. In the desert, height is hope made vertical, and in that there is something almost unbearably human.